So now, ladies and gentlemen, live and in colour, it's Mr. Wayne Lovejuice.
The other day our producer Louis had a chat with an interesting chappie who said that the YouTube algorithm really aren't that happy. If a channel only broadcasts once a week, so we decided we could Xtra. Whenever we've got a piece of news in our new book on the track Xtra. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name's John Downs. I'm the director of the Centre for Fortean Zoology, and welcome to another episode on the track Xtra. This is part 2 of the show we started last week, in which Ian Squibbs and Richard Freeman do an appreciation, I think is probably the best word for it, of the long lost 1975, that's 50 years old. 50 years old, count those 50 years, half a century. The 1975 legendary TV show, Fabulous Animals.
It held all the episodes of the Lost series from 1975. The files were quite low res and pixelated, so I spent significant time restoring them using different approaches. I'm pleased with how the final results turned out compared to the original source files. I hope you enjoy this unexpected treasure. More shows and documentaries will be posted in the coming weeks as I work my way through the dump I was sent. So, finally, after 50 years, I was able to watch Fabulous Animals, and I wasn't disappointed. So there we go. That's the search and how I got there. And you've seen it, John, haven't you?
Yes, but I didn't see it first time round.
You didn't.
I was the wrong age.
Yeah, it was ideal.
Young enough to see it. I'm 11 years older than you.
Yeah.
So when you were 5, I was 16. And I was, believe it or not, studying my arse off for my O-levels and being bullied into doing so by my parents. And when I wasn't studying my arse off for my O-levels, I was beginning to chase women and listen to the Sex Pistols. So yeah. My mind was elsewhere at the time.
Yes. To be honest, it's one of the... out of the images from going back into those days, I can hardly remember school or anything, but I can remember Fabulous Animals. Weird, isn't it? But
it must have been something that I can't imagine any other film that you can watch so avidly, aged 5, and still enjoy so avidly at 55.
It's true. What we can do, before we tie things up, though, let's just briefly run through the series and its various episodes. So, a couple of images to go with this. So what we'll do that. So, each episode has a runtime of about 20 minutes and are played in by medieval trumpet fanfare type music over the series title in stylized medieval lettering. And we can actually see that in the next image there. If we look at picture number 3, that's the Fabulous Animals logo. We can show the people at home that. And then a young David Attenborough appears in green sweater and grey slacks and starts pottering about in some kind of office of curiosities. And then he tells us about that week's Fabulous Animals, and we can actually see in the next image there a smart, casual David Attenborough from the programme. And there we go, he is looking nice and tidy. Good. So, episode 1 was broadcast on November the 14th, 1975, entitled Here Be Monsters. The episode is very much an introductory piece for what is to come in the series, and as Attenborough's distinctive commentary reviews the ancient origins of mythical beasts and the reasons behind people's belief in such creatures. Episode 2, broadcast on November the 21st, 1975, entitled Marvels of the Deep. The episode kicks off with Attenborough looking out from the Cornish coast as he tells us about the mermaid myth and spends more than half the programme going on about that. He then moves on to the topic of sea monsters and in particular the giant squid. He then covers the famous cases of the Gloucester sea serpent and the HMS Daedalus sea monster sighting before moving on to the Loch Ness monster. A recreation of the Spicer sighting follows. Then we have a quick look at the classic photos and a bit of the Dinsdale film. Attenborough offers his view on the monster and seems to favour the eel theory. So there we go. Episode 3 aired on November the 28th, 1975, and is entitled Dragons and Serpents. Attenborough explores ancient tales about dragons, has a look at the more elaborate Chinese dragons, and offers up the crocodile and Komodo dragon as possible explanations for this type of mythical beast. Episode 4, aired on the 5th of December 1975, was entitled Winged Creatures. David Attenborough shares intriguing tales about winged creatures, both real and imaginary. Among them are the unfortunate dodo, the enigmatic vampire bat, the legendary rock bird, ancient Egyptian bird gods, and the ancient myth of the magnificent phoenix rising from the ashes. Episode 5, aired on December the 12th, 1970, is entitled Horns of Magic. Attenborough delves into the ancient legends involving creatures with magic horns, including deer antlers, cattle horns, and pagan ceremonies involving stag horns. He looks over the different beliefs around the world involving cattle, from the sacred cows of the East to the giant white chalk horses etched into the landscape of the downs of southern England. The highlight of the episode are tales of the mythical single spiraled horned unicorn, and Attenborough explains how explorer Marco Polo mistook rhinos for unicorns due to their single horned appearance. Episode 6, the final episode, was aired on December the 19th, 1975, and is entitled Man or Beast. The highlight of the series sees Attenborough looking at half-man, half-animal creatures of old, such as the dog-headed man, the cat-faced woman, and the little people. He moves on to more contemporary theories, like baboons being partly human, and elephant skulls being mistaken for the remains of the legendary one-eyed Cyclops. He then covers the modern-day Bigfoot and the Patterson film. Footage of Roger Patterson himself is shown as he talks us through the events of that fateful day in 1967. When it comes to showing the film of the Bigfoot, it looks like there was a copyright issue, as we are only shown one still frame from the film, which is the one where the creature looks round at the camera. And we can actually see that image in the next, if we just look at show the people at home that image there, John, picture number 5. Now, that image was burnt onto my infant brain when I saw it, and it's still there. I would never forget that. We then look at the Himalayan Yeti, the Shipton footprint, and the infamous Yeti scalp. Attenborough closes out the episode and the series by showing clips from various Hollywood monster movies, like King Kong, implying that the most fantastic animals probably come from the imagination of man. So, there we have it. An informal but informative review of Fabulous Animals with David Attenborough from 1975. And you can see it for yourself if you go to skinnyv.com the Basement Archivist YouTube channel. That's Skinny V, the Basement Archivist YouTube channel. Check it out before it gets taken down. You know what YouTube's like. So there we go. Anyway, I waited 50 years to see Fabulous Animsls, and I must say, it was well worth the wait. Thank you.
Something which, as you went through the list of what's in the show, it underlines something I've been thinking a lot about recently, is that in cryptozoology, the focuses change over the years, because even though there had been the Surrey puma, and there had been sightings of mystery cats in Britain, there have been a few historical ones, but they'd been going on pretty well continuously for the previous 10, 15 years. It didn't mention British big cats, and it didn't mention the thylacine, presumably because the thylacine had, although the last one had allegedly died in a zoo in 1936, that was only less than 40 years before, and I don't know when it was actually declared to be extinct. From memory, the late 80s, I think.
Yeah,
but
well,
cryptozoology's emphasis changes.
Plus, also the program was only 20 minutes long, so he also obviously had to cut. There were things he wasn't going to cover.
If you were going to do it now, if somebody were to do a Fabulous Animsls show now on BBC or whatever channel, there are things it would cover that weren't covered in the original, and things from the original that wouldn't be covered in the 21st century version, which I think that's interesting. It shows that cryptozoology and allied disciplines are a dynamic science. They're a science which does change and adapt to the times, which I think is really interesting.
Quite true, yeah. But obviously, you've got to look at it as it's not just that, is it? There's more. It's something from the 70s to start with. As I said, there's more to it. Yeah, right. You know, for me, it's the mystery creatures, obviously, but obviously there's other. There's something else. As I said, I've got these images stuck in my brain from that time. Hardly anything else I can remember, but for some reason that's there. And yeah, so well, obviously, I know why it's there because I was into that stuff. But you know, there's just more to it, you know. And when you look at cryptozoology and that over the years, you can always find an extra angle to look at. All right, we're not looking at the Loch Ness monster, are we? We look at Frank Searle. That's what we like. Oh, there's a monster in there. Never mind the monster. Let's look at this guy. So, you know, that as well. There's more to it. The story develops and different angles developed, which is good.
Because it's a dynamic science and it's still going. And we are still going on towards that hypothetical final frontier.
Quite true. Couldn't have put it better myself.
The one I want them to find, well, the several I want them to find, I want them to find the old Gerald Durrell series that he did for the BBC back in the late 50s, early 60s. Like Catch Me a Colobus.
Oh, right.
That's an absolutely wonderful one, set in Sierra Leone, which was still British at the time, and about him studying colobus monkeys in the wild and trying to catch them to bring back a breeding colony to set up a breeding colony at Jersey.
I hope they haven't been wiped, like the BBC wiped a load of their old tapes, which were worth a bomb. They could have made millions on. And they wiped loads of stuff. They wiped loads of Doctor Who.
Well, it's like the Beatles on top of the Pops. Most of those have disappeared.
Yeah.
There's the Beatles doing Day Tripper live on top of the Pops, of which there's only, I think, 7 seconds of it left. And that's silent, it's got no sound. And that they just wiped. But then again, people didn't know this stuff was of any lasting value.
I believe they've still got Zoo Quest. I think they've still got all of Zoo Quest, but they've never done anything with it.
I want to see the one in New Guinea again. The one when he meets the shaman who calls for a saltwater crocodile and a tiger shark.
That would be brilliant. Yeah.
That was. I mean, I've got the book, but I've got
another thing he talks about is mammoths frozen in the permafrost, and the old books about where they thought they were like giant mole creatures with huge teeth that dug under the ground, and if they come up to the surface, they'd die. And what people were uncovering were actually mammoths in Siberia. It's an absolutely great series. I love it.
And while you're talking about underground mole creatures, there's of course the marmots in, where was it? Kazakhstan, I think, that were believed to be giant ants that go underground and mine for gold.
Yeah. They taste bloody awful.
What, marmots?
Oh no, that's Marmite.
Bloody idiot.